We've got a huge update in the 1.22.0 update. We're already on Pre.2, and as I've been working my way through the changes, it's occurred to me that several of the changes are going to make the start of the game more difficult. Let me explain. Fish. Let's start with fish. One of my resources early in the game was always to find a shallow pool with a fish in, run forwards, beat the fish to death with whatever I had in my hand, a melee attack, and then I would have a sliver of protein I could eat and also some small fish bones that would then provide handles for knives, etc., to make them more durable. Now in the last update, the fish bones became tiny, so you can't use them for tool handles or weapon handles anymore. You have to have the big animal bones. And in this update, the fish now require a large body of water to spawn, so they're not going to spawn in shallow pools anymore. And if you try to wallop them with something, they flee very, very quickly. So a melee attack is no longer optional. It seems to me that fishing rods are not that hard to make, so the game requires you to actually make a fishing rod and fish rather than just hit the fish to kill it. It's just slightly more difficult. It means that if you spawn inland where there are no large bodies of water, you're going to have to pray for a large lake. So that's one change that just makes life a little bit more difficult. I have always found it very, very useful when I first start a vintage story game, and I don't start games often, I'm only on my 6th personal map, but I've always found it very, very useful to be able to spot a trader easily, which is no longer the case, and to then run to that trader, spend the night in their hut if they need to, sleep in their bed if I need to, and use their storage. And even now, if I don't have enough storage and I have something I want to use, I will temporarily store it in a trader. My understanding is that we can no longer use the storage in traders to store our goods. In my view, that makes it much more difficult early in the game when you don't have much inventory. Traders have always been a lifesaver for me, and I have very, very often built my houses and bases around the traders, and that has helped me so much with storage. Fingers crossed that that changes. On top of that, they're changing grain. Now, on the one hand, grain in the future is going to spawn in patches twice as large in world generation, so that will help early in the game in finding seeds and hopefully some grain. However, from then on, grain crops have half the yield in grains and fibre, so they're easier to find, but then when you first start planting your crops, you're going to get less grain and less fibre back. That's less flax, I think they mean. So the net effect is that we're going to have to require larger fields for the equivalent amount of grain production. And when I think about the size of the flax fields some people already have, this is going to mean that we're either going to enable underground farming if you want to build on, say, a small island or a cliff face, or you're going to have a lot of flat land needed. So that's one that is sort of half plus and half minus. One of the biggest changes is spears. Let's go and have a look at them. I have lined all these up. And the reason I've done that is that I can't remember this. Now, visually, the spearheads are a lot more gorgeous, and we now have iron spearheads. But the net result is to nerf the lower level spears. So this is any stone spear, this happens to be granite, used to be 2.5 in damage, it's now 1.8, and I would say the durability has not changed. It used to be 2.5, it's now 1.8. Flint spears used to be 3.25 in damage, they're now only 2. And I don't know about you, but we've always been used to killing a surface drifter with 3 flint spears. I think we're going to have 4. I mean, it's not a big deal, but it's something to be aware of in the early game. We need more spears, and especially when your inventory's in short supply. Copper was 4.25 in damage, it's now 2.8. Tin bronze was 5.25, it's now down to 3.8. And my beloved black bronze, because I run around with 5 black bronze spears, was 5.5. It's now 4.0. So I think I'm going to have to run around with an extra black bronze spear. It's not too bad at this level, but when you're first starting out, you're going to have more spears in your inventory. Now, the ones that have been added are iron, meteoric iron, and steel. They are very beautiful if you ask me. Iron, the damage is 6, meteoric iron is 6.1, and steel is 6.2. I think that 0.2 difference doesn't make too much, but an iron sword at 6 is pretty good. But when you look at this, the black bronze was 5.5, now we've got the iron sword, it's only 0.5 more, whereas the black bronze is 1.5 less. So we've gained, what, 0.5 and lost 1.5. And again, that's a statistic that will affect the early game as well. So that's something else to think about. Horsetail. We got horsetail here. I mean, there are many more spears than that. Obviously, there are more like bismuth bronze spears and things like that. But I just wanted to have a look at the main differences. Now, this one, horsetail, we used to be able to use this at the beginning of the game or in all the way through the game as feed for bees and butterflies. Now, I always found that very odd, because in the UK we would never look at horsetail, and we regard it as a horrible pernicious weed. We would never use it for bees or butterflies. So this can no longer be used as butterfly food, or more importantly, bee food. Why would I put this in the early game? Because sometimes, very early in the game, we are scruffing around for the amount of flowers we need just to get the first bee steps going. And I have to say that horsetail has always been a sort of easy one. Bowthorns have changed, and I mean, I find bowthorns hideously irritating. They're going to be even more irritating because it says that, I mean, the issue with bowthorns has always been that they are really annoying at a distance, but when you run up to them, they just run away, and you can kill them very easily. But now, if you get them into an enclosed space where they can't run away, it says that bowthorns evade the player more intelligently, and if they can't evade you, they will fire back. So that's a downward spiral as far as I'm concerned with bowthorns. They're even more irritating. And again, I've mentioned this because early in the game, it was at least helpful to be able to kill them easily. They're now more difficult to kill. I'm going to mention sunbears, because up till now our main enemy on bee skeps and berries has been the raccoons who come and steal them. Sunbears are now going to break the bee skeps and steal the berries. It's always been the case that we've been able to have beautiful fields of flowers and bee skeps without fences round, because the raccoons have not been able to reach them if you put the bee skeps on a tree or on a one high fence post. Bears can reach a lot higher, I think, some bears. So I think we're going to have to protect our bee skeps a bit more. And the other thing is that ladders, the ordinary ladders that we all use, have I got some here? Where have I put my ladders? I've got some sticks, that will do. These ladders, these are what I would call crude ladders that are made with sticks, as opposed to the new fancy ladders that are made with planks. We always used to be able to get ourselves out of trouble by pinning up on a ladder. Where did they go? Yeah, there we go. 24 ladders. Now, apparently, ladders can't use just the ground. Yes, no spot to attach it to, and they can't hang from something. They have to have a solid wall behind them. So they have to have a solid wall. And early in the game, when you don't have a saw to make this type of ladder, that's going to be more difficult. And I know what you're all going to say to me is use rope ladders. One hopes that is going to be okay. Okay, but again, that's another little bit that makes it more difficult to go caving or to go up cliffs, you know, generally to explore things if you haven't yet got to the stage of having a saw. So I think those are one or two changes that I find I suppose less than ideal. The one I really care about is I've always loved these black bronze spears, and I mean the new spearheads are beautiful, but this, you know, getting iron but trading off this amount of attack damage seems a bit much to me. So again, something else in early game that will be a bit more difficult. I think the whole game is trying to force me. I've always tended to stop at iron, but I think it wants to force me upwards to do more and more. I mean, that's fine and fair enough. But in early game, these small changes can make quite a big difference. But as always, we will all get used to them, and we will all accommodate them in the way we play. But this update is actually huge, my friends. Now, you'll notice that I haven't mentioned the inability to get liquid or solid fat out of these pots, meaning that if you have to use a bucket, you have to have a saw to get this sort of solidified fat. And I put that in as a possible bug. I don't know whether the devs are going to view that as a bug or whether it is an intentional delay of being able to get your properly solidified rendered fat. Okay, so that's where I am thinking quite heavily about early game changes. Well, I hope you've enjoyed this little update. If you have, leave a like and perhaps consider subscribing to me as I continue to work my way through. And my friends, we haven't even got to mechanics yet. Bye bye.